Good morning, everyone. We're excited to have you here with us today. I'm Ileana Soto-Welty with MindOC. This is being brought to you as part of our ACEs Aware Network of Care. We are holding a series of sessions with a focus on equity and healing to help us incorporate healing practices into our organizations and communities and into our lives, because in order for us to do this transformational social change work, we also have to be deeply connected to our own healing, reflection, and well-being. So thank you for being here today. If you missed our last equity and healing session, I will be putting it in the chat so you can watch it later. But today we are really excited to be partnering with Kaiser Permanente. And we have Ruth Dease, who will be leading today's session. She is a bilingual Spanish senior learning consultant with Southern California Kaiser Permanente. She is a qualified mindfulness-based stress reduction instructor through UC San Diego Center for Mindfulness. Ruth received her bachelor's and master's degree in public health from California State University Northridge. Ruth specializes in developing and delivering workplace wellness programs to local and national customers. Outside of work, Ruth enjoys cooking and baking, gardening, and spending time with her family. So thank you, Ruth, for being with us today.
Thank you, Ileana. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm trying to put myself on gallery view so I can see all your faces, and I'm so excited to see the diversity in terms of names and everyone who has introduced themselves. I just want to start off by thanking Ileana and Andrea just for our conversations and the opportunity to be here to discuss a topic that is very close to my heart, and just the opportunity to be able to share with all of you as well. So, before we get started, I know there's so much busyness going on. I mean, someone just shared these past few years, as for all of us, has been very difficult. So I thought we'd take a pause, and I'm going to invite you, if as much as possible, if you can remove any distractions. I know sometimes that's very difficult, but whatever is possible for you, whether it's your phone or notifications, just so that we can give ourselves this gift of this 45 minutes or so that we're giving ourselves to practice a bit of mindfulness. So I thought we'd start us off just by taking a pause, just taking one deep breath collectively together. So the invitation here is to inhale through the nose and an audible exhale through the mouth, just releasing and letting go anything we don't need right now. And as I get myself set up with my presentation so I can show all of you, if you don't mind and you feel comfortable to do so, just maybe in 1 or 2 words, if you don't mind sharing in the chat box how you're feeling right now. And there's not one right or wrong way, it's just how you're currently feeling right now. Okay, so I'm going to try to find how to expand. Okay. Okay, so let's see what you're all sharing. And honesty is welcome. Stress, peaceful and relaxed, anxious, tense, tired, present, calm, intrigued, tired, stressed, a bit all over the place, not supported, others that are feeling stressed, foggy, challenged, and yet hopeful, others that are feeling stressed, tired in this moment. Thank you, everyone, for sharing and just being honest. Sometimes we try to put on a brave face for other people, and I really appreciate everyone's honesty. And as you can see, everyone's at different levels, and that's okay. It's just how we're currently feeling now in this moment. Thank you. So as we begin, I'd just like to share a little bit about me, not so much of the professional side, but what brought me to practicing mindfulness and really taking a deeper dive and becoming certified. I have a daughter who's now 18, and about at the age of 5, I decided that I wanted to parent differently. I wanted to have a different relationship. I wanted to have a different approach when it came to parenting my daughter. And, I think like most of us, when we're interested and intrigued about topics, we take a deep dive and participating in podcasts and trainings. And there's this doctor, his name is Dr. Daniel Siegel. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He's written so many books, but one of the books that stands out to me right now is The Whole Brain Child. Well, he talks about the developing brain with children. And the takeaway, that if I had to say one thing that was a takeaway from what I learned from him, was the importance of being present for my daughter, going through different emotions with her, and just being present as she was growing. And so based on those learnings, I started practicing meditation. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I took, different classes and took different, meditation sessions. I think, purchased a CD that how to meditate. Well, it wasn't until I took MBSR, the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction program, that really changed my life. And those are pretty strong words, but when I had the opportunity to actually go to a 7-day silent retreat, it was incredible. And I know sometimes we all don't have, the availability or the same privilege to be able to go away and leave our families for 7 days to a silent retreat, whether it's at the mountains at Joshua Tree or Big Bear or any other mountains. But I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and being in silence and having plenty of time for reflection and hearing different teachings and being really curious about the practice and just different thoughts that I was going through, just really did change my perspective. So I'm so happy to be able to share, even if it's just 45 minutes, I'm happy that I'm able to share this wonderful practice. So let's go ahead and move on to our agenda. And if you don't mind sharing, I want to get to know you a little bit better. Excuse me. I know you've shared just currently how you're feeling, but what has your experience been with practicing mindfulness? And I'm going to go over our agenda while you're sharing in the chat box. We're going to go ahead and start by just hearing what your experience has been. And if you're here and you don't have any experience with practicing mindfulness, no worries, you don't have to have experience to be here, but it's just nice for us, all of us, to kind of hear from each other and for me to get to know you as our audience members. I'm going to go ahead and start us off by defining what mindfulness is based on Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness, who created the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction program. We're going to talk a little bit about the wandering mind and how practicing mindfulness can benefit us. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to guide you through 2 mindfulness activities. And then we're also going to discuss some resources that are available to you. We also tend to include action plan. And basically, while it's great that you're here to listen to information, I'd also like for you to set an intention for yourself. What would you like to take away in terms of a practice, maybe just for a week, so that you can begin to practice some type of mindfulness practice? Okay, so I can see that some of you are already sharing in the chat box, and I'm going to go ahead and share. Not much, tried, but it never stuck with it. Totally hear you. That's where I was at the beginning. Inconsistent, so there's that variety. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. A guided meditation in nature are my ways of connecting to mindfulness, sometimes washing the dishes and showers too. Absolutely. We're going to talk about ways that are called informal practice of mindfulness. It doesn't always have to be sitting in a beautiful place with our legs crossed. We can practice mindfulness in everyday activities. Moderate but inconsistently practiced. I've experienced practicing mindfulness as well as working with clients to support them with implementing mindfulness techniques. I don't often utilize mindfulness, but I do enjoy the grounding. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I preach it to my team, family, and friends, but don't practice it enough for my own well-being. And isn't that true? I find myself sometimes doing that as well with other topics. Thank you. Yes, just that. I need to be more intentional to make it happen. Thank you for that. Using art and gardening, putting my phone and electronics away, spending time at the beach and journaling are regular practices for me. I try to intentionally maybe pause before changing activities, such as work and home, and also breathing. Thank you all for sharing. So as you can see, there are definitely different practices and different ways that we can practice mindfulness. And let me go ahead and just share a little bit with you this definition of mindfulness. So here's one definition by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who wrote the book Full Catastrophe, as well as I mentioned earlier, created this evidence-based program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. And he defines mindfulness as paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. I often like to say that I believe we've all practiced mindfulness without calling it or labeling it as a term of mindfulness. So I'm going to ask you to recall perhaps an event that you went to where you got to see family members and you were really happy. Maybe you were enjoying a good meal together and just each other's company. And what was that like for you? Tapping into your senses as I walk you through these scenarios. What kind of emotions did you experience? What do you remember maybe about the food? Maybe there was laughter. What about your first job? Do you remember your first job? What was that like? Remember what kind of physical sensations you experienced? Maybe emotions that you had at that time? Maybe thoughts that you had? What about an amazing concert that you went to? Do you remember what that was like? Were there any sense that come up for you? Or maybe just the music and remembering that. And again, maybe any emotions, physical sensations. What about the worst vacation that you went on? What about a teacher that wasn't so nice to you? Do you remember what that felt like? And if I have any parents here, any mothers, do you remember your experience when you gave birth to your child? What was that like? So mindfulness is about tapping in, and the way we kind of get into this present moment is to tapping in into these different senses, such as touch, taste, sight, hearing, physical sensations, emotions that are happening in the present moment without judgment, without any kind of interpretation. And often we apply judgment without even knowing it, saying, I like this, I don't like that, I don't want to do that again. Oh, I really love that. I mean, social media is great about that. Thumbs up, thumbs down, different heart emojis. So how can we be with what's happening now, just as it is, without labels? In MBSR, we start off our sessions by talking about how to cultivate an attitude with mindfulness. And so I just have a couple of attitudinal behaviors in terms of mindfulness. Oops. I'm just going to go over a couple of these. Can we set the intention, maybe, especially not only when we're practicing, sitting down and practicing, whether that's in our everyday activities or actually sitting down and doing a breathing practice or some other type of practice like a body scan, but how can we apply these foundations to everyday activities that we do? Maybe practicing patience. Sometimes we're in such a hurry, we're just doing things very quickly or multitasking. What about practicing acceptance? This is just the way it is. I can't change it, I can't control it, and accepting things for how they are. What about the ability to let go? Sometimes we want to hold on, we have attachment to some situations or people, and it's very difficult for us to let go, which causes sometimes a lot of stress. Today, I'm going to invite you to come here today with a beginner's mind. Many of you shared your experiences with practicing mindfulness. And the beauty about beginner's mind is maybe today you can look at our session as if you haven't seen this before. This is the first time that I'm meeting all of you. This will be the first time that you hear my voice as I guide you through a practice. So can you be here today with the intention of having a beginner's mind? Or maybe there's another practice that you see here or some other intention that you would like to implement today. So what does mindfulness have to do with stress reduction? I'm going to ask you, where is your mind now? Maybe you want to let us know in the chat box if you feel comfortable to do so. Where is your mind now? And we bring this up a lot when we talk about mindfulness, because often our mind is often thinking about other things. Our mind might be planning, it might be worrying, it might be checking off the to-do list, it might be thinking of something that might have happened in the past, or maybe it's predicting the future. Our mind is always somewhere else. So let me go ahead and see if any of you are willing to share where is your mind right now. Yeah, thinking about tasks I need to complete before the end of the day. Absolutely. Let's see here. Oh, let me just go back and someone else shared just something fun. A family reunion barbecue. We had a huge water balloon fight and it was so much fun, so much laughter, and it was great. And I could already, I can't see the person who shared this, but for myself, I can see that it brings a smile and a good feeling. Okay, so let's go back. Yep, thinking about the tasks that you need to do. Work, my son, same for someone else. It's Friday, we want the day to be over. Absolutely, my mind is growling, hungry belly, absolutely. Work, curious about kids, the weekend sports, equity, California LA Awards tomorrow night, so different activities for this weekend. Absolutely. So you can see that our mind, kids after school activities. Thank you so much for sharing. And not taking it personal. That's just what our minds do. Just like our heart beats and we can't control our minds do wander. Thank you all for sharing in your honesty. So we have a quick poll here. Eliana, if you don't mind assisting me with this poll. And I would like to ask you, how much time do you think the mind wanders during the day? Do you think it's 25%, 47%, 63%, or 70%? How often do you think the mind wanders? And maybe the question that I gave you earlier of asking you where your mind is at, it might have given you a sense of how often our mind wanders. Okay, so we have about most of you have already participated. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, but you can see that some of you are sharing 70% of the day our mind is wandering. Thank you all for participating in that poll. So actually, based on the research, there's a researcher who his name is Matt Killingsworth. You can see a great YouTube video where he talks about the wandering mind. He says our mind wanders about 47% of the day. Isn't that interesting? So our mind is constantly thinking about other things. And while we're doing some tasks at hand, our mind is already thinking about something else, just like it is right now. And based on his research, he found that people that practice mindfulness are much happier. You might be thinking, why is that? So based on his research, he says that when the mind is wandering, there's something called a concept called negative bias, where the mind is scanning for threats. And so think about it. Have any of you received maybe a call from your child's school, or maybe perhaps you get called by your supervisor, or maybe someone has to cancel a meeting immediately, and it's not like that person to cancel a meeting. What do you immediately think of? Maybe you want to let us know in the chat. What immediately comes to mind when you get this all of a sudden call, whether it's from your child's school, your supervisor, maybe you get pulled over from a police person. What begins to happen in your mind? What do you begin to think of? Let me go see if some of you are sharing the same thoughts that I often share. Oh no, what's next? Absolutely. Oh gosh, did something happen? Yes. Worry, what happened? Our mind tends to go to the negative, and that's what negative bias is. Thank you all for sharing. What do I need to do to fix it? Absolutely. So what begins to happen as you shared these responses that you all had in the chat box, or maybe something that came in your mind, you begin to have these thoughts. And I want you to consider for yourself, not only when you get this out of the blue call or situation, as I just described, but what about when you're under stress? Maybe you had a difficult conversation with someone. Maybe you're having difficulty with a client. Or perhaps you have an email that really activates you. Think about the thoughts that you begin to have. And what follows that? Any feelings? Maybe you want to let us know in the chat box if you feel comfortable to do so. Any feelings that arise when something stressful begins to happen and you begin to have these thoughts, maybe of worry? What do I need to do to fix it? What happened? Yeah, frustration, absolutely. Anxiety, frustration, overwhelm. And I want you to think about maybe what physical reactions do you have to that? When you begin to feel frustrated, anxiety, overwhelm, what happens in the body? Migraines, absolutely. Heart races. Anyone ever have any tension? Yep, tense muscles. Absolutely. Maybe your stomach begins to tie into knots. Yeah, tension in the chest, knots. Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. So in MBSR, we often talk about this. What physical sensations do you have in the body? What emotions do you begin to have? What thoughts begin to arise? And this is actually being in the present moment. We are acknowledging and we have awareness of what is happening to us in the present moment. Now, let me ask you, and I can also ask you, how do you cope? How do you cope when you have all these physical symptoms? How do you cope when you tend to have these different emotions? For some people, they tend to cope with them in healthy ways, and it might be exercising. Maybe some of you are already letting me know in the chat box and would rather hear from you. Cry it out loud, absolutely. Take a nap, eat. Yeah, I appreciate everyone's honesty. When we're able to get honest with ourselves, we begin to get curious, surround myself with family and friends, get some sun, make a list, walk with my pup, talk it out, absolutely, get some movement in there, do some dancing. Thank you all for sharing. So we often talk about this because sometimes we have behaviors that actually increase our stress. So great to hear that you're acknowledging those thoughts, those feelings, those physical symptoms that you have, as well as how are you coping with them? And if we're coping with them in unhealthy ways, what is a different coping mechanism that we can use so that later we don't have the negative consequences of unhealthy coping behaviors? So, many of you shared why you're here today, and I'm going to assume that you are here because you probably have either heard or you've done your research about all the benefits that mindfulness brings. And you can see here there's wonderful benefits to mindfulness, from reducing your stress to being able to be more focused, maybe not just with work, but perhaps with relationships with your clients as well. Mindfulness allows us to tap into these different emotions, different physical sensations that we're having, and being able to notice the moment we start going into that fight, flight, freeze mode. And how can we catch it so it doesn't escalate? So we become less emotionally reactive. It also allows us to not go into negative bias mode, so not having that overthinking or ruminating. But the reality is that the only way we can reap the benefits of mindfulness is through practice. Through practice, as some of you shared, whether that's gardening, whether that's, as you're exercising or writing in a journal, or maybe sitting down and meditating, that's the only way we can really reap the benefits of being mindful. Why? Because when we take part of these practices, we are actually training the brain and paying attention to this moment. So we're going to go ahead and go into, different types of meditations. But before I go into that, often what I've seen is that we think that mindfulness is meditation. And I actually want you to think about mindfulness being an umbrella term for different practices that train attention. And one of them is meditation. And I want you to think about meditation and what helps bring the attention to the present moment or train the attention is anchors. Today, we're actually going to practice an activity using different anchors. And I want you to think of anchors as an anchor in a sailboat. When there's turbulent waters and we drop the anchor allows to ground and settle the boat. Same with practicing various anchors, which I'm going to share with you today. When we practice meditation, it isn't always focusing the attention on the breath. We can focus our attention on sounds, physical sensations, perhaps sights as well. So know that it doesn't necessarily just have to focus on the breath. So as I mentioned earlier, we receive all these benefits from mindfulness the more we practice. And often we call mindfulness a mental gym workout. Just like when you go to the gym, you want to maybe build muscle in your back, your arms, your legs. Every time you lift a weight or a dumbbell, every repetition that you lift, that strengthens the muscle. So when we practice being mindful or practice a meditation practice or practice, just bringing the mind back when it wanders, that's like lifting a weight. That is strengthening the brain, that's strengthening the mind to pay attention to what's happening now. So often I hear people say, I just want to clear my mind. I don't want to think about anything. And they often think that mindfulness is going to do that for them. It's not. The brain will often wander off to something else, maybe to what you have to do on this weekend or what maybe you have to do with your kids. And every time the mind wanders off, the invitation is to bring the attention back to whatever anchor you chose. So let's go ahead and practice. Okay, so we're going to do a practice that focuses on our senses. So I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable position. And if you happen to be in an office, for you that'll be sitting down. But you can also practice standing, whatever's most comfortable for you. And just finding that comfortable position, feeling your feet flat on the ground. Noticing the sits bones as you're in your chair if you're sitting. Taking a few deep breaths. And maybe just allowing the body to relax if possible. Bringing your shoulders away from your ears. Softening the belly. Softening your jaw. And allowing yourself to turn your attention to this moment. And the invitation here is to begin to use the sense of sight and simply just looking around in the room that you're in. Slowly. Maybe looking over to your left. Noticing perhaps anything that there is in the room that you're at. Looking up to your right. And not looking for anything in particular, just simply looking around in the room that you are in. Noticing if any storyline has begun to come in, such as, oh, I need to fix that, I need to clean that. We're not doing that here, we're just simply observing. And now bringing the head, the eyes to a neutral position. And shifting the attention to hearing. Perhaps hearing my voice, Maybe hearing sounds that are in a distance, sounds that are close to you. Internal sounds. And simply receiving sounds, not trying to find a certain sound or, not noticing any sounds in particular, just allowing yourself to receive any sounds that are around you. And now noticing how you can shift your attention from sounds to physical sensations. Perhaps that's feeling your feet flat on the ground, your clothes against your skin, feeling the support of the chair beneath you. Maybe it's feeling your hands holding the other, or hands on your lap. Maybe it's simply the air caressing your face. And now it's shifting the attention from these physical sensations to the breath. Noticing the in-breath and noticing the out-breath. And not breathing in any particular way. Simply allowing the body to breathe. For some, the breath is sometimes felt in certain parts of the body, such as the rising and falling of the belly. The expansion of the chest and the lungs with the in-breath. And the contracting of the out-breath. Or maybe the breath is felt in the nostrils. Cool air with each inhalation. And warm air with each exhalation. And now releasing the attention on the breath. You might be hearing a sound that has caused some distraction. Allowing yourself to bring your attention back to this present moment. Perhaps that's the breath for you. And at the bottom of an exhale, releasing this practice. Allowing the body to be here. If you close your eyes, you can gently open your eyes. Maybe stretch the body a little bit or roll the shoulders back or forward, whatever's most comfortable for you. And gently inviting you all to return to our session. And this was one practice that can help ground us in the present moment, especially when we start feeling the tension that you shared, the various feelings that you shared of anxiety or overwhelm. And maybe in the moment that you're having these different thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations, maybe it's just choosing one of these senses and perhaps just practicing it for a couple of seconds. And this practice allows our nervous system to reset itself to some sense of calm. Thank you all for practicing. And if it's comfortable for you, maybe even sharing what this practice was like for you. So often when we think about practicing some type of meditation or mindfulness, sometimes we think of this image. For some, maybe for some of you it isn't. But sometimes it's this posture of sitting with your legs crossed, hands out, straight back. Or maybe practicing some type of meditation for some, it's being in the perfect environment with a beautiful scene, maybe the mountains, maybe a retreat, or maybe you think about being at the beach. And it's the only way we can practice mindfulness. It's being in these perfect settings. Well, as some of you shared earlier, we can actually practice mindfulness in everyday activities that we do. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, washing your hands, drinking a sip of coffee, perhaps. And so I know for me, what often happens first thing in the morning when I get up, my mind is already thinking about work. And so sometimes I find an opportunity, maybe this will work for you, or maybe it's a practice that you can think of, is in the morning, as we all practice brushing our teeth in the morning, is just focusing our attention on the water, on the toothbrush, on the motions of the toothbrush, on the toothpaste. And when the mind is wandering, thinking about the meeting that you have to get into first thing in the morning, or thinking about all the things that you have to do, whatever that may be, in those minutes that you're brushing your teeth, simply bringing your attention back to the present moment, back to the practice of brushing your teeth. Or maybe it's washing your hands and feeling the warm water against your hands, the soap suds on your hands. And just what does it feel like as you're lathering your hands? And when the mind begins to wander off, bringing the attention back. So again, we're training our mind to be in the present moment, and all these activities count. But we also know that there's formal practices. There's practices called the body scan, where we focus our attention on different parts of the body. Sitting meditation, it could be one that we just practice right now. We're focusing our attention on the breath. But we could also practice being in the present moment while we're walking, which is called walking meditation. And so we all walk. When we all begin to, oh, my mind is wandering off to other things, paying attention to how you're placing your feet on the ground, when you're lifting your foot, your knee, your leg, your hip, and paying attention as you bring your leg back down to the ground. So that's another way that we can practice more formal practices. We're setting an intention in a specific moment to practice being in the present moment. And I also want to share with you a practice called loving kindness. Maybe, I don't know if I can use the emojis here. Maybe you want to let us know in the chat box. Have any of you heard of loving kindness practice? Have you heard of loving kindness practice? Maybe letting us know in the chat box if any of you had. Okay, so I'm having someone sharing yes. So loving kindness practice is really about increasing feelings of kindness, of warmth, not only towards others, but also towards ourselves. And so thank you all for sharing that you've heard of these loving kindness practices. And so loving kindness is not just about pushing away difficult emotions that we're having, but it's about having compassion maybe in a moment of difficulty for another person, for a situation, and also for ourselves. And so today we're actually going to practice a compassion practice, which is also a loving kindness practice called Just Like Me. And before we get into the practice, I just want to talk about one more thing. And I want to talk a little bit about trauma-informed mindfulness. Often with mindfulness, many times, not always, we associate practicing mindfulness with relaxation, with feeling calm. But for some people, practicing, focusing the attention on the breath or sounds like a bell, or practicing, focusing the attention on body sensations can actually cause discomfort due to perhaps past trauma that one has gone through, or maybe trauma that one has inherited. And so as a result of that, sometimes uncomfortable emotions might arise. And sometimes I hear from participants, it's like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? And there's nothing wrong with the individual by feeling these emotions. These emotions or physical sensations do rise. So what we often say is, how can we be with this practice and work with the capacity that we have so that we can expand the capacity to understand what exactly is happening in the moment? And so when we practice mindfulness practices, we often say the most important thing about this practice is to take care of yourself and to find different types of anchors and modify the practice. Ultimately, it's not about white knuckling yourself through the practice, but it's about working what's arising. So we might say, find a different practice or something that grounds you, that makes you feel a little bit more the sense of being in the present moment without, just feeling uncomfortable. So that could be a grounding practice for you. It's choosing perhaps an anchor. If the breath is uncomfortable for you, choosing an anchor such as sounds or sights. And then finding self-regulation techniques that could help you feel a little bit more in the comfortable zone, not overwhelmed zone. So let's go ahead and practice Just Like Me, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's a compassion practice. And today we're actually going to focus this practice on times when we're having difficulty with another person. So this practice is going to invite you to bring someone to mind that you might be having difficulty with, or maybe someone that activated you. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm going to ask you to bring to mind someone that's maybe on a 3. Maybe it's a barista that didn't necessarily make your coffee as you enjoy it. Or maybe it's someone that honked at you while you were in traffic, or whoever it may be. But the invitation here will be to bring someone to mind that has maybe caused a little bit of distress for you, nothing into overwhelm. So I'm going to invite all of you to find that comfortable position. And again, this might be for you standing, sitting. And if you're working remotely, that might even mean laying down if that's available to you. Taking a few deep breaths. And moving from our head to our feet. Relaxing the shoulders, noticing even what's come up for you as I prepare you to think about someone that might be causing a little bit of tension. Noticing what's happening in the body right now. What thoughts are you beginning to have? And simply noticing, not trying to fix it, we're just noticing what's here in the body right now. And bringing the attention to the breath if that's comfortable for you, or finding another anchor that's most comfortable for you. Breathing in and breathing out. And closing your eyes if that's available to you, or you can leave your eyes open, or you can lower your gaze. And now bringing to the mind's eye this individual. This individual that maybe causes a little bit of distress, a little bit of discomfort. Again, no one that's going to cause you to go into overwhelm. Just maybe someone that you're not necessarily seeing eye to eye. And as you bring, or you begin to imagine this person, begin to bring this person to the mind's eye. I'm going to invite you to share silently to yourself, to share some statements that you'll be sharing with this individual. And silently repeating the following words. This person has a body and mind, just like me. This person has feelings, emotions, and thoughts, just like me. This person was once a vulnerable child, just like me. This person at some point has experienced sadness, disappointment, and anger, just like me. This person has experienced physical and emotional suffering, just like me. This person has made mistakes and is learning, just like me. This person has experienced joy and happiness, just like me. This person is doing the best they can, just like me. This person wants to have a sense of belonging and fulfilling relationships just like me. This person wants to be healthy and loved just like me. And now noticing any physical sensations, emotions, thoughts that might have come up for you as you shared these reflections with this individual. And if the mind has wandered or gone into dialogue, simply bring the attention back to anything that maybe came up as you shared these statements. And now, as you have this individual in the mind's eye, offering this person well wishes, and finding the following words that might resonate with you. May you be happy just like me. May you be healthy just like me. May you be at ease in body and mind just like me. May you be at peace just like me. And now gently releasing this person from the mind's eye. And bringing the attention back to the breath. And collectively taking one deep, long breath, the deepest, longest breath that you've taken all day today. Inhaling. And as you exhale, letting it all go. And gently opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. Stretching your arms if that's comfortable for you, your legs, your fingers, your toes, wiggling your fingers and toes. And if it's comfortable for you, maybe just sharing in that chat box, what was your experience like with this practice? No right or wrong answer, simply what was your experience like? You know, this practice, and as you're sharing this practice, sometimes difficult, but allows us to move away from the narrative, perhaps that we're having of this individual, and reminding us that we are all human And just like we do, others have it, different experiences, different struggles. And maybe just for a little bit, having a bit of compassion, not only for them, but for ourselves. And know that you can practice this at any time, maybe when you're in traffic, at work, walking down the hall, instead of having, various thoughts that aren't necessarily helpful, is just like me. This person wants to belong and have some peace. So thank you for those of you that have shared. Calming gives perspective, empathy, compassion, understanding, peaceful, insightful. Think of that person more calmly, which made me calmer than I think of them. Absolutely. So it's interesting what happens to our own body, to our own nervous system, as we share these warm wishes with another person. Thank you all for sharing. So I'm just going to quickly share with you. I know some of you shared in the beginning, I've tried it. I'm not consistent. I try it for a little bit and then just kind of let it go. And that is completely normal. That it happens to all of us. I think the most important thing whenever we're trying to change a behavior or trying to take on a new skill or practice is really understanding your why. Why is this important to you? Making the commitment small. Maybe it's just 1 minute in the morning when you wake up. People often ask, when is the best time to practice meditation? Whenever it's possible for you. That might be in between meetings. It might be early in the morning, at nighttime before you go to bed. So whenever you can make that small commitment. Practicing being mindful in everyday activities, as we talked about earlier. And maybe being part of a community. It's, as we're doing today, it's heartwarming to see that other people are here with the same intention of practicing a mindfulness practice with others to perhaps create a sense of calm and peace. Just want to share with you quickly some resources that are available at no cost. UCLA and USC have at no cost mindfulness apps that are available to you, and they're guided practices. The Center for Mindful Self-Compassion has live, no cost meditation practices that you practice in community, but they also have recordings. I want to share that Kaiser Permanente also has many wellness resources. They have classes, and I know that on Thursday there's live guided meditation practices. So you can check out these resources. You can take out your camera and take a picture here at this, and scan this code here. And I know I've shared this with Ileana and Andrea as well, that they can pass along this information to you. If you are a Kaiser Permanente member, and if you are not a Kaiser Permanente member, but these two apps are available to everyone, the Calm app and the My Strength app. Calm app has lots of great, not only meditation, guided meditation practices, but if you're having trouble falling asleep, they have bedtime stories, but they also have nice music. I was listening to that this morning, woke up very early and just put a little bit of calming music, and it was nice just to focus my attention on that, but lots of great practices on here. But what I was mentioning is that although these two apps are available to everyone, for our Kaiser Permanente members, these two apps are available to you at no cost. And I know that the Calm app comes in different languages. All you need to do is register on kp.org/self-care apps. And again, just lots of great resources that are available to everyone. kp.org/Center for Healthy Living, specifically the Wellness Tools tab. There's lots of great resources on nutrition, managing your stress, exercising, healthy eating that are available to community members at no cost, specifically the Wellness Tools portion. Again, lots of great resources. If you need additional support, which we all do, if you are a Kaiser member, we have wellness coaching by phone, and we have great coaches that have expertise around behavior change. So if your goals are around managing your stress or just being more active, we have coaches available to assist you. I know we're over time, and I just want to thank you all for being so honest in that chat box, sharing this practice with all of us. If you have any questions in regards to anything associated with mindfulness or Kaiser, or even just the MBSR program, you can reach out to me at ruth.p.dease@kp.org. Okay, and let's see here. Thank you to all of you. Okay. And Ileana, I will hand it over to you, unless there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Ruth. That was absolutely beautiful. I felt much more relaxed. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us